Good morning, everyone. My name is Charles St. Louis. I'm the Chief Operating Officer at Element Finance and one of the contributors to our governance initiatives. And as everyone knows here, governance research is not an island, so there's a lot of people to thank for that. So today I'm going to be talking about why crypto protocols are failing and why that's not necessarily a bad thing, but also how to fix it. But before I get into it, I want to ask everyone here a few questions. Everyone raised their hand if they actually participated in their last election. Did they vote? Okay, not bad. Who here has participated in decentralized governance, whether it's for a DAO or protocol? A little less. How many people didn't raise their hand because they didn't think their vote mattered here? All right, so since humans have existed, we've had some form of governance or another. It began with tribes and clans. Resources became scarce, so people had to group together and make resource allocation a little more efficient. Give or take a couple of years or so, we had kingdoms come along. So with kingdoms came kings, taxation, and better resource defense. A couple more years later, we had empires. So this is when the kingdoms formed together and they ruled nations together. But the thing about empires is that they always fall. And then, maybe just a little more than a couple years later, we formed democracies. And this is when the first concept of the vote actually evolved. So there was more participation in actual governance as opposed to just one person, some man making all the calls. Everyone actually had a say to vote. And this was great for many reasons, but it also came with problems. A lot of these people didn't actually want to vote, even if they were reminded to vote. And instead, a lot of bad ideas and proposals came forward and pushed through because no one really cared. We also had problems such as tyranny of the majority. And that's why we kind of moved towards the republic, where it's not mutually exclusive from democracy, but it does allow people to actually allocate their voting weight to people to actually do the things that they're good at doing and govern for them. So today, after millions of years of governance evolution, we still have many forms of these governments still existing today in one form or another. And all of that came through lots of failures and lots of evolution and people working together. And of course, it took millions of years. So at this point, you're probably wondering why I'm talking about the history of governance, and you want to get to the point. Well, the point here is that governance fails and evolves. They evolve with time, nothing works perfectly, and clearly nothing is permanent. So now thinking, with the hopes of this paraphrased version of history that I just gave, I'm hoping that everyone here did see some trends in how the decentralized governance space has evolved over the past couple years. And of course, we've had the liberty with this technology that we have, blockchain and crypto, to actually test these experiments in real time with real people way faster. So we don't have to go through millions of years of evolution to actually test these things and see how they work. But some of the similarities that I see with decentralized governance today is, direct democracy with the one token, one vote. Obviously, it comes with a couple problems such as a capital barrier, where people have to earn or pay for a vote. And that kind of definitely reduces the inclusivity of the things that we want to all vote on. There's reputational voting, which is quite new. Non-transferable voting based on your reputation and your contribution to the community you're working in. And then there's representative democracy, so with token voting and delegation. So if you don't want to vote, you can go ahead and vote, delegate your vote to someone you trust, and we'll make the right decisions for you. And then we have republic-like DAOs. So these are DAOs that vote in teams to run governance, run operations, or even run protocol engineering. But the problem here is they don't have authority. They have to go through the same governance process as everyone else, and that's not efficient for operations of DAOs, that we want to move quick and make changes, especially in cases of hacks or big issues. So I'm hoping you can see some of the similarities between the evolution of governance from the beginning until how we've done it in the industry today. So at the beginning of my talk, I mentioned that I'm going to talk about how we're going to fix this, and I'm sure you're waiting for the answer. But to be completely honest, I'm not going to tell you about an answer that fixes all our problems. It's more so about building a system that adapts as we want. So by building more adaptable governance systems that are flexible, upgradable, modular, we can adapt and evolve more efficiently than our ancestors and with less turmoil. No wars are needed here. So what do these systems look like? Well, I see these systems looking as a way to continuously improve and strengthen inclusivity. As history has shown us, governance hasn't been very fair for everyone in terms of inclusivity. It took thousands of years to give many types of people their own vote and say. It was very closed off. So how can we continuously strengthen and adapt with our governance systems to allow every type of person in our community to have a say in governance, not just the people who hold tokens? On that note, I think we also want to make voting not a burden. A very few people here raised their hand when I asked if they voted in any governance here. So a lot of people just don't want to do it. And how can we make that better and more a pleasant experience? We also want these systems to be able to upgrade easily or change with current political dynamics. So if a system needs to act accordingly in a very urgent scenario, we want to have a system that can push that forward very fast to fix it so that all the people involved aren't affected in a very bad way. And lastly, we want to make operating a DAO more efficient. A lot of DAOs go through tons of proposals and it takes months to push forward, especially technical proposals. So how can we make these things more efficient for everyone so that we can continuously push forward finance, crypto, and all things alike? So at Element, we're not just a fixed rate protocol. We've also spent so many hours researching governance. We have a stellar team of people who've spent years thinking through governance, looking at the problems, thinking how we can improve it. And as such, we built a governance protocol to match. And we hope that the entire industry will see this as a way to build more adaptable governance and as a starting point. It can be upgraded. It can change. We want everyone to use this and build with us. So like I said earlier, Council is a protocol that can be upgraded. It's not always a bad thing. And it's modular and flexible, which I'll get to in a little bit. There's many elements, pun intended, to the Council protocol, but these are the few ones that I really wanted to cover today because I think they're just so important to everyone here. The first is a take on representative democracy and liquid democracy. So it's a governance steering council, elected through delegation. The second has to be my absolute favorite. It's called voting vaults. I like to say it's a way to increase inclusivity, but also capital efficiency. So it mitigates the fact that only a small portion of people in regular governance systems get to vote, but also it doesn't make it burdensome to vote as well. Oh yeah. So these voting vaults work by assigning voting power to any position or value provider in your protocol or community. The third is optimistic grants. If anyone here has been a part of a grants model, I'm sure they can acknowledge the fact that it's a very pessimistic model. It always assumes that the grantee is going to fail and that payment method reflects that. So with optimistic grants, we have this system that allows high budget grants with clawback abilities. So if they're not meeting their milestones, the actual funds can get clawed back. And lastly, we want the DAO teams to have authority. So many teams in this industry, such as MakerDAO core units or the stewards from ENS and Gitcoin, they all have these voted-in authorities. They're paid by the protocol, which is just mind-blowing to begin with, but they don't have the area of expertise and authority to actually act efficiently in their areas of expertise. So how can we make that better? Now, I don't have time to talk about all four today, but I really want to highlight the two ones that really stand out for me. And for all the rest, you can go visit Element's blog posts and our social media if you're interested, and we're happy to talk more about it in our Discord. So the first one is the Governance Steering Council. And like I mentioned before, it is a form of representative democracy or liquid democracy, and it's all done through delegation. So the GSC is elected on a rolling basis, and there's a delegation threshold. So if you surpass that delegation threshold, you're on the GSC. And in order to stay there, you have to be very transparent, communicative with all your voting, what you're doing, or else people will kind of lose respect for you and undelegate and move on to someone that actually follows their needs. So like I mentioned before, these people elected through governance is great, but do they have authority? With the GSC, they do. This authority comes with the ability to actually spend portions of the treasury up to a certain limit for things like conference sponsorship, grants, one-off projects. It allows them to actually spend the treasury without having to go through all the governance process to just give a small grant. The other authorities that the GSC have are the ability to push proposals directly on chain in cases of urgency or prioritization. So unlike a regular community member, they have to go through the proposal process, an off-chain vote, and an on-chain vote. The GSC can propose something directly on-chain. Of course, the community does have the last say in veto power, but this does help push things forward in urgent situations. The GSC concept can be spread quite vastly. So from the start, we'll have one, but the council or GSC concept can be spread to other things, such as protocol engineering, sub-DAO-like models, where these people are elected and trusted from the community and can actually have areas of expertise, authority. So let's say a protocol steering council could make a quick change and propose it very quickly. A treasury could make actual higher spending limits and give like big grants to projects working on the Element protocol, or whatever community this concept uses to govern. Back to voting vaults, my absolute favorite part. So the really cool thing about voting vaults is that it allows you to assign voting power to any position or use case in your community. So like I mentioned earlier, the one token, one vote is very specific, and it has a lot of barriers for everyone in a community. Often the biggest contributors, especially from my experience at Maker, is that the biggest contributors to these DAOs and projects are actually in the forums, on the Rocket Chat or Discord now, on GitHub, pushing PRs, but none of them have a say, and they often have a very low amount of governance tokens to actually make an impact, so they kind of sit back and just wait. So this allows that concept to rebalance and actually have these people have a higher say, or an equal say, as the people who purchase these tokens on the market just to vote in governance. These voting vaults are modular and upgradable, so let's say we gave a very high voting power to someone who's a GitHub contributor. If that's way too high, we can essentially just adjust that voting power in the future. So it's not permanent, and it can change based on current dynamics. The last part is something that really resonates with me, and that is having capital efficient voting. In governance today, you often have to lock your governance tokens in a voting contract, and that's all you can do. There's a large opportunity cost there. So with voting vaults, you can actually go and do all the things you want to do in DeFi, such as borrow against your collateral on Compound or Aave or Maker, or have an LP position open, or go and get that yield farming. This allows you to participate in all that DeFi while maintaining the ability to vote and delegate in governance, therefore increasing governance participation. Now, a lot of that was theoretical, so I wanted to give a couple more examples of what voting vaults can be and what they can be extended to. So like I mentioned before, Compound and Aave, you can have your tokens as collateral or earn interest while keeping voting power. Not too far away, you have the LP vault, where you can have an LP position open and still get voting power while providing liquidity. The last one is the most important to me, and that is an identity verified vault for all the people who contribute to your protocols on GitHub, the forums, Discord, and are actually in the trenches doing the work. You can have individual voting vaults for those people to have them participate in equalizing governance, or you can even take it to the next level where people can have one identity vault that aggregates all these together and provides you a score with the highest voting power. So the next time you vote using voting vaults, you can tell yourself that you're voting with maximum capital efficiency. So what can we all do with this now? Council is open source and anyone can use this. And we want you to. We want you to fork this protocol. We want you to use it to govern your DAOs and your protocols. You can also build with us. You can go ahead and build voting vaults and propose them to our governance to add your protocol's ability to participate in ours and the like. It's all open source and on our GitHub. And the special thing about this as well is, because it's modular, if you don't want to incorporate the GSC into your governance system or your DAO, you can go ahead and just take the voting vaults aspect and use it in your current system. You can pick and choose which parts of this protocol that you want to adapt in your DAO model so that fits your current needs. So I'll leave it off with the fact that I think my good friend in the front here, he sent me the quote. It's by Thomas Jefferson. You deserve the governance you elect the governance that you deserve. So if you want your community to have a say in your governance and not just be gated to one token, one vote, and you want the real contributors to have value, choose this model and it will help you make that more equal. I think 2022 is a big year for governance innovation, and everyone here has to play a part in that. We can't just stick to the snapshot and multi-sig votes. It's not decentralized. We got to push these things forward if you want to see change. And don't be afraid to fail, because as history has told us, we evolve through failure, and that's how we get it done. So I salute you all for being here. I appreciate listening to this talk, and cheers to more experimentation in this space. Thank you.